is no real pushback for this. And this is dangerous. This is real dangerous because if everything continues the way it's going this time next year, you're looking at a completely checklist system of government that is centered around the chief executive, which is not what the founding fathers intended at all. So the lack of money, the lack of funds, the lack of voices against what's happening here in just the first week and a half is terrifying. Those that don't understand why it's terrifying, go read a history book. Look at Germany in 1933. Look at Italy before that. Look at all of these things that are happening that strips oversight and basically checks any type of hard stop against a naked aggression to gain power. So that's where we are right now.
The law itself hasn't been a check. It seems like the strategy of the Trump administration, and we war gamed this out time and again, anticipating this kind of thing. Their approach is push through these EOs, these executive orders, fire AGs illegally without 30 days notice, and dare the courts to defy us. And if the courts do stand up and say that's illegal or unconstitutional, we've always got J.D. Vance invoking Jackson's threat to the court when he said the court has rendered its opinion, let them enforce
it. Right.
There is nothing more lawless than that, than not just defying the law, but defying the Supreme Court when it says you've broken the law.
I'm glad you brought that up, Ken, because we are not students of history. This generation of Americans have completely pushed history aside. A lot of that's by design. A lot of that is based on educational policy, because when you know history, you know what happens. What you just said, Andrew Jackson, that led directly to the Trail of Tears.
Yes, it did.
And one of the biggest genocidal episodes in American history, because the Supreme Court ruled that those native populations in the state that I live in, Georgia, was right, and they said to hell with it. And so the party of law and order, the party of rules, have thrown that to the wayside in less than a week. 1,600, pardons for a violent insurrection that happened on the steps of the Capitol building. Let me once again say this to people. The only other time that happened was when the British marched on Washington in the War of 1812. There's only 2 times that's happened. And so when you think about this, we allow all of those violent, let's be clear, violent perpetrators, violent insurrectionists, because that's what they were. They're not hostages. They were being held accountable for their actions. And so at VFRL, we talk about character in leadership. We talk about ethics in leadership. When you do something, you're going to be held accountable. That's part of having character. And the fact that this man just blanket pardoned, didn't even go through and try to filter out the most violent. And he was directly asked that by a reporter. And he's like, well, we'll look into it. What is it to look into? You already let them out. They've been on social media talking about they're going to buy guns, this, that, and the other. Their rights of arms restored. Meanwhile, someone convicted of having a certain amount of marijuana on them will never have those rights. Yeah. And he quickly pivoted to like, well, their murderers are going free. What does that have to do with you being the president of the United States, getting rid of 1,600 insurrectionists, to the point where a few of them even realized that was wrong. They did the crime. They should do the time.
Yeah. So we just had Pam Hemphill on, the one of maybe the only one, perhaps one of 2 insurrectionists who said, I don't want that pardon. That's a slap in the face to every Capitol police officer who defended the Capitol against people like me that day. I wish there were more people like Pam Hemphill. Sometimes it takes a 70-year-old woman to remind people what courage looks like, though. And to the point about the violence of these insurrectionists, we already have example 1 of many more to follow of an insurrectionist who was stopped in a traffic incident, pulled a gun on a cop, and is now dead. These are not good people.
No. And here's the thing. We cannot be selective in how we apply the law. That has been the biggest issue when you look at domestic tranquility, how one group of people, that a lot of them look like me, are subjected to a different set of rules than everybody else. Do you think this helps change that narrative? It does not. And the other piece of this too is, if you're supposed to be backing the blue, why on God's green earth would you put 1,600 proven violent insurrectionists back on the street where like you said, with that traffic stop, they're now being put at more danger than they already are. Make it make sense to me, those that defend these pardons.